Nestled in the Ozark Mountains, the Crescent Hotel has been called the most haunted hotel in America. With a history of death, deception, and despair, it is no surprise that this grand old building is home to countless spirits. But none are as notorious or as terrifying as the ghost that resides in room 308. The Crescent Hotel was built in 1886 as a luxury resort for the rich and famous, offering a haven of relaxation and opulence in the heart of the Ozark Mountains. Designed with the highest standards of the time, it was intended to be the most luxurious hotel west of the Mississippi, complete with electric lighting, modern plumbing, and grand ballrooms. The Crescent was a place where the elite could escape the stress of their lives, with lavish rooms, grand ballrooms, and sprawling gardens. But beneath its facade of luxury, the hotel was plagued by financial troubles and soon fell into decline. In the 1930s, the Crescent Hotel was reborn as a hospital under the control of Dr. Norman Baker, a self-proclaimed healer who claimed to have a miraculous cure for cancer. But Dr. Baker was no doctor. He was a con man, preying on the desperate and dying. Baker turned the Crescent into a hospital for the terminally ill, luring patients from across the country with promises of a cure. But his treatments were nothing more than a cruel scam, consisting of painful injections of spring water, corn silk, and alcohol, offering false hope to those in their final days. As the death toll rose, the hotel became a place of sorrow and torment. Many patients died within the walls of the Crescent, their last moments filled with pen and fear. The despair left behind by these souls permeated the building, and it wasn't long before the first reports of hauntings began. After Baker's arrest and the closure of the hospital, the Crescent Hotel fell into disrepair. For years, the building stood abandoned, a dark relic of its past. Those who dared to enter spoke of feeling watched, hearing voices, and seeing ghostly apparitions. But it was in room 308 where the most terrifying encounters occurred. Among the many spirits said to haunt the Crescent Hotel, none is more feared than Michael, a young Irish stonemason who worked on the hotel's construction in 1886. Michael was known for his charm and good nature, a young man full of life and dreams. But Michael's life was tragically cut short when he lost his footing and fell to his death while working on the hotel's construction. His body was found at the base of what would later become room 308, a room that would forever be associated with his spirit. Not long after the hotel opened, guests who stayed in room 308 began to report strange occurrences. Some spoke of waking up to the sensation of someone sitting on the edge of their bed, while others felt an icy cold presence in the room, despite the warmth of the hotel. Some guests even claimed to see the ghostly figure of a man standing in the corner of the room, watching them as they slept. The figure would often approach the bed before disappearing, leaving the guests in a state of terror. As the Crescent Hotel was transformed into a hospital in the 1930s, the haunting in room 308 grew stronger. Michael's spirit, disturbed by the suffering and death surrounding him, became increasingly active and malevolent. Hospital staff and patients reported terrifying encounters in room 308. Cold hands reaching out from the darkness, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, and the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty room. One patient, who spoke of a man in the room watching him, died suddenly, leaving behind an air of fear and dread. Over the years, room 308 has drawn the attention of paranormal investigators, each hoping to capture evidence of the ghostly presence that haunts the room. Armed with the latest technology, they've ventured into the room where so many have felt the touch of the unseen. Their efforts have yielded chilling results: sudden spikes in electromagnetic fields, unexplained cold spots, and disembodied voices captured on tape. One investigator reported feeling an intense pressure on his chest, as if something was trying to push him out of the room. Guests who have stayed in room 308 often leave with stories of their own. Tales of strange knocking on the walls, beds that shake violently in the night, and an icy breeze that moves through the room even when the windows are closed. One guest awoke in the dead of night to see the figure of a man standing at the foot of her bed. She described him as tall and thin, with piercing eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. As she screamed, the figure slowly faded away, leaving her trembling with fear. Today, the Crescent Hotel embraces its haunted history, offering ghost tours and inviting guests to stay in its most haunted rooms. But the staff still issue warnings to those who dare to stay in room 308. Enter at your own risk, for the ghost of Michael still walks these halls. In February 1978, 5 young men from Yuba City, California, set out on a road trip to attend a basketball game. What should have been a fun night out turned into one of the most baffling and terrifying mysteries in American history. This is the true story of the Yuba County 5, a tale of inexplicable disappearance, fear, and tragedy. Welcome to Cosmos World, where the shadows come alive and the unknown lurks in every corner. Prepare yourself for tales that chill the bone and stories that haunt your dreams. Dare to uncover the mysteries that refuse to stay buried. Subscribe if you're ready to explore the darkest corners of the human mind and beyond. The Yuba County 5 were lifelong friends: Jack Madruga, Ted Weiher, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Gary Mathias. They were all in their 20s and early 30s, and while they were described as mentally disabled or with psychiatric conditions, they were capable, kind-hearted, and loved by their families and community. On February 24th, 1978, the 5 friends piled into Jack's car, excited for a night out. They were heading to a college basketball game in Chico, about 50 miles away. They planned to return home that night, as they had their own basketball game the next morning. But none of them would make it back. After the game, the group stopped at a convenience store to pick up snacks and drinks for the ride home. It was a normal night. Nothing seemed amiss. But that was the last time anyone saw the Yuba County 5. They should have headed directly home, but for reasons no one can explain, they ended up driving nearly 70 miles east, deep into the rugged terrain of the Plumas National Forest, a detour that made no sense. Days later, the search began. The police and volunteers scoured the area, but it wasn't until February 28th that they found the first clue: their car, abandoned on a remote mountain road, far from any paved routes. The car was stuck in the snow, but it was in working order with enough fuel to drive back to safety. There was no sign of the men. Inside the car, they found neatly folded maps, snacks, and a few belongings, but no signs of a struggle. It was as if the men had simply stepped out and vanished into thin air. As winter turned to spring, the snow began to melt, revealing the secrets hidden beneath. The search resumed, and on June 4th, nearly 4 months after the disappearance, a group of motorcyclists stumbled upon an abandoned U.S. Forest Service trailer, nearly 20 miles from where the car had been found. Inside the trailer, they found the emaciated body of Ted Weiher. Wrapped in several blankets, he had survived for weeks, possibly over a month, but died of starvation and exposure, despite there being a stocked pantry within the trailer. There was no sign of the others, but the discovery only deepened the mystery. Further searching revealed the bodies of Jack Madriga and Bill Sterling, just a few miles from the car, and the remains of Jack Hewitt near a stream. They had all succumbed to the elements, yet their deaths only raised more questions. Why had they left the car? Why hadn't they sought shelter in the trailer earlier? The fifth man, Gary Mathias, was never found. Despite extensive searches, his body, or any trace of him, was never recovered. Was he the last one alive? Did he wander off, lost and disoriented? Or did he meet a different, more sinister fate? Over the years, countless theories have been proposed to explain the tragedy. Some believe they got lost after taking a wrong turn, while others think they may have been fleeing from something or someone in the forest. Gary Mathias, who suffered from schizophrenia, might have had a psychotic break, leading the group into danger. But none of these theories fully explain what happened that night. Decades later, the disappearance of the Yuba County Five remains one of the most chilling and perplexing mysteries in American history. Their families are left with more questions than answers, and the truth of what happened on that cold February night may never be known. The Sierra Nevada remains as unforgiving as ever, keeping its secrets hidden beneath the snow and trees. And the story of the Yuba County Five serves as a haunting reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. For over a century, guests have checked into the luxurious Mountain View Hotel, but not all of them have checked out. Among the rooms in this grand establishment, one holds a particularly dark secret. Room 217, where the line between the living and the dead is blurred. Opened in 1909, the Mountain View Hotel quickly became a retreat for the wealthy and famous. Built by a railroad tycoon, the hotel offered opulence in the heart of nature. But what the guests didn't know was that the land on which the hotel was built had a history of its own, a dark and violent past that would soon come to light. It didn't take long for strange occurrences to begin. One summer evening in 1911, a maid entered room 217 to prepare it for the night. But what she encountered would mark the beginning of the hotel's dark reputation. As she lit the gas lamps, an explosion ripped through the room, blasting the walls apart. Miraculously, the maid survived, but she would never be the same. She spoke of an icy presence that held her down, protecting her from the worst of the blast. But others believed it was something far more sinister. After the explosion, guests who stayed in room 217 reported unusual occurrences. Furniture moved on its own, whispers filled the air, and cold spots would appear even in the heat of summer. The hotel's management dismissed these claims as mere imagination, but the stories persisted. The most chilling reports came from those who saw a woman in old-fashioned clothing standing at the foot of their bed. Described as a figure dressed in a Victorian gown, her presence was always accompanied by a sense of overwhelming sorrow. She would disappear as quickly as she appeared, leaving guests terrified and unable to sleep. In the 1990s, a team of paranormal investigators spent the night in room 217, hoping to capture evidence of the haunting. What they recorded sent chills down their spines, a voice warning them to leave, and the image of a ghostly figure caught in a mirror. The evidence was undeniable. Something, or someone, still lingered in that room. In recent years, many guests have asked to stay in room 217, drawn by its eerie reputation. One such couple, unaware of the room's history, checked in for what they thought would be a romantic getaway. But as the night wore on, they soon realized they were not alone. In the dead of night, they awoke to see her, the lady in white, standing at the foot of their bed. Her presence was undeniable, her sorrow palpable. The couple, frozen in fear, could only watch as she slowly faded into the wall, leaving behind a chilling silence. The next morning, the couple left the hotel without a word, their faces pale and drawn. Whatever they had witnessed in room 217, it was enough to ensure they would never return. And so, the legend of room 217 continues, as does the haunting of those who dare to stay.